Greetings, my art friends out in internet land. Welcome to Illustration Industry Tips with Shawna Tenney. I'm Shawna Tenney, and you can find me at shawnajctenney.com and shawnajctenney.blogspot.com. Today I'm going to talk about questions you should ask a potential freelance illustration client. In particular, I'm going to talk about clients who want you to illustrate a book or a textbook, since my background is in children's illustration. It's really important and professional to ask questions. You need to have good communication so you can make sure that the client is being fair and that you understand what the client's asking for. The first question you should ask a client is, what publishing house are you working for, or are you a self-publishing author? If they are working for a publishing house, you should ask to see their website and make sure they're a legitimate publisher. And if they are a self-publishing author, you should ask them what their plan is. You know, are they planning on doing a Kickstarter fund? Do they already have a publisher? Or are they planning to publish it online? Kind of get an idea of what they want. Any way they are doing it, they should be paying you for your illustration work. If the author is planning on publishing through a publisher, then they should know that the publisher is always in charge of finding an illustrator and paying the illustrator. So they don't need to worry about finding an illustrator. The next question you'll want to ask is, may I read your manuscript? This is a really important tip because I had a really bad experience with this where I didn't really read through the manuscript thoroughly and it ended up being a really badly written story, but I was stuck with the job. So you'll want to read the manuscript through thoroughly and make sure it's A, well written, and B, it's something that you want to illustrate. You know, a lot of beginning illustrators get really excited about their first paid job and they just will take anything. But I think it's important to take something that you're going to actually enjoy illustrating, because if you don't, it's just going to turn into a bad job that you're going to hate. The next question you should ask is, what are the details of your project? Is it a textbook? Is it a children's picture book? How many illustrations do you need in your book? What's the trim size, or do I get to decide the trim size? Do you want full spread illustrations, half pages, spot illustrations, or do I get to decide? And the best jobs, they'll let you decide how to lay out the illustrations in the book. The next question is, what is the deadline? You want to make sure that it is something that you can handle. There are a lot of jobs where the client is in a big rush and wants to get it done and doesn't realize how long it takes an illustrator to illustrate it. A lot of times the illustrator can pull it off, but it usually isn't their best work. I've taken on a lot of jobs that were too much of a rush and it was pretty draining on me and my family. So I've learned to ask if it isn't enough time, to ask for more time, and usually if they respect me as an illustrator and they respect me as a professional, then they'll be able to give me a little more time if it's possible. The next question is, what rights do you want for the illustrations? And oh boy, this is a good one to ask even before you ask how much money they want to pay, because if you don't, you could run into problems like I did in a recent job. I didn't know that they wanted all the rights to my illustrations, and I found this out later as we were trying to sign the contract, and I realized that I had to ask them for more money because they wanted all the rights to the illustrations. So it is important to know what rights they want, because that could affect the price. And if it's work for hire, you're going to want to ask more up front. Which brings us to our next question, which is, what is your budget? And this is always a fun subject because a lot of self-publishing authors have no idea how much an illustrator should be paid, and they ask you how much you want to be paid. You need to make sure you are being fair to yourself and think of how much time it will take you, and make sure you're not being paid minimum wage. You know, in this illustration industry, prices keep going down and down. In every other industry, the prices are going up and up, and we deserve to be paid more than minimum wage. We are professionals. So make sure you're being paid what is fair for the time you're putting into the project. If they don't offer a fair price, then don't take the job or ask for more. Which brings us to our next question, which is, what will your payment schedule be like? It's good and professional for a client to pay more than one payment to the illustrator on a long book project. So for example, a payment schedule could be like a third up front, a third after sketches, and a third after finals are delivered, or half up front and half when the finals are delivered. A client shouldn't ever pay the whole thing up front, but it is good to pay in parts when it's a big project. Which brings us to our last question. Will you send me a contract, or would you like me to send you a contract? A lot of times with self-publishing authors, they will want you to send you a contract because they have no clue about contracts. Also, I had an experience recently where I was working with a new publisher and they didn't have any contracts, so I had to send them a contract. There's a great book that I'd recommend. It's called Business and Legal Forms for Illustrators by Tad Crawford. I will put an affiliate link in my show notes. And it's great. It's a book, but it also has a CD-ROM, and it has contracts which you can revise for your own purposes. And writing a contract is a whole subject on its own, but needless to say, having a contract before starting an illustration job is very important. That way both you and the client is protected. I hope you ask these questions and lots of other questions to your clients. Good communication will make you and your clients happy, and it will help you weed out the bad jobs from the good jobs. That's all for today. If you like this post, come and comment on my blog, and let me know if you've thought of any more questions you should ask a potential client for a freelance illustration job. And be sure and subscribe to my channel. And come visit me at shawnajctenney.com and shawnajctenney.blogspot.com, where you can find more industry tips and tutorials.